If you're in the market for a new backpack, this video is for you. Choosing a backpack for a backpacking trip is one of the most important choices you'll make with all of your gear. Depending on the type of hike you're going on, this will impact how much gear you can bring with you on that trip. Not to mention that it can impact the comfort of that hike as well. You want to make sure that the backpack you choose has enough room for all of your gear and then all the food that you'll need on your hike as well. But you don't want to make sure that it's so big and so heavy that you're forcing yourself to overpack just to fill up the space. If you go to a gear store and you have someone help you find you a backpack, they might not be doing the kinds of backpacking trips that you're going to be going on, so I'm here to cut through all the crap and help you find out what's going to work for you. Hi, I'm Jabba, the Real Hiking Viking. I've backpacked roughly 25,000 miles, all the Triple Crown trails, and everything in between that you can imagine. And today we're going to talk about how to choose a backpack and everything that comes along with that. All right, before we even select the backpacks, we need to know what kinds of trips you're going on. First off, will it be an overnight, a weekend, a multi-day? Will it be a full through hike where you're out there for months? What kinds of uses will your backpack be going on? Next, seasons. What time of year? Are you going to be in the spring, summer, fall, all three? Is it going to be winter? Also, are you going to be on trail, off trail, desert, high alpine? All of these are taken into consideration when thinking about the pack you want to buy. You may even want to consider whether you're going solo, with a partner, or even a group. Sometimes you have shared gear. You might want to be carrying more than someone else, or someone's going to be carrying some of your gear too. All of these things can matter when deciding what type of pack you want to be using. It could mean you need a more robust pack. It could mean you need a lighter pack. It could mean you need a pack with more features or less features, or a pack that has a more padded hip belt or no hip belt. So make sure you know what you want to do before you start selecting the type of pack that you're going to be using. All right, for example, let's say you're going into the desert. You might be carrying much more water than you would if you're going to be in the high alpine, where you'll be seeing streams and lakes and creeks all the time. So make sure you know, and also make sure you know how much water is out there. Because if you have no good hip belt and you're carrying 10 liters of water between water sources, that can mean your shoulders and your back are in a lot of pain by the end of day one. Or maybe you're doing an overnight trip versus a through hike, and the volume of your pack could come into play there, where you don't need 70 liters versus maybe 40 liters. These are all the kinds of reasons why you can see different kinds of backpackers using different kinds of backpacks on all these different kinds of trips. So take that into consideration when you're choosing your backpack, because it's not one size fits all. All right, moving on to section 2, pack volume. Pack volume. What does that mean? You're probably wondering if this is your first time buying a backpack. Well, it's measured in liters, and I know that's the stuff we drink typically. That's just how we measure the size of our packs. It's in liters. People choose backpacks for backpacking trips everywhere from 35 liters to up to 75 liters and everything in between. All right, let's start with day packs, anywhere from 10 to 30 liters depending. Here we have a 26-liter day pack right here that could be for around town or for quick trips up the mountain, just for training, peak bagging. You can probably sneak in an overnight if you're pretty ultralight, but essentially you just want to make sure you have a big pocket for all your stuff during the day, layers, food, some outer mesh stuff pockets for bottles and snacks or water filters, whatever it is. Basic day pack. Day packs can have hip belts. A lot of them don't. But essentially, they're pretty simple, maybe a little padding. They don't need frames. They're pretty lightweight, and they're just going to be used to get you through whatever day trips you got going on. When picking a day pack, you don't have to get too discernible about all the features because you're just using it for the day, really. So pick what you want. If you want to go colors, you want to get big, you want to go small, you want to go ultralight, you want to go durable, it's kind of whatever suits your fancy. Next, we have overnight and or weekend packs, and those can be anywhere from 30 liters to 50 liters. And again, just remind yourself that when I'm saying this, you still have individual needs based on your base weight and the things that you're carrying in your pack, all right? So what works for one person is not going to work for all people. For example, here we have a 37-liter pack. All right. For some people, this is a lot of space. And for other people, it's not a lot of space. All right. This can be used as a day pack or a through hiking pack. But this particular one has one main volume, one big mesh stuff pocket, 2 bottle pockets, no frame, a couple of little mesh pockets on your shoulder straps, And that's it. That's pretty simple. But again, it can be used as a day pack or an overnight pack or a thru hiking pack. So you'll have a range of features that you'll see in these types of packs that might work for you and might not work for you. Again, this one, no frame, no padding, no hip belt. This is an ultralight thru hiking pack or someone's standard day pack. But we can probably comfortably put this in the category of a good weekend pack. This is a 40-liter pack with a bit more features built into it than the prior pack. This can also be an overnight or weekend pack. So to compare, you have ultralight featureless packs that can be utilized, or a bit heavier, bit more robust, and feature rich. This happens to be my own personal pack, the Mountainsmith Zerk 40. I use this on all my thru hikes. So you can use it for a day hike, you can use it for an overnight, or you can use it for thru hiking. This one here has a foam frame sheet and a hip belt. Now, the hip belt on this is also removable, so it's versatile in those ways. And that's one thing you'll want to consider when buying a pack is it versatile? Because maybe you're trying to buy a backpack for all kinds of uses. Moving on to some more traditional volume packs for long distance backpacking or thru hikes. 50 to 70 liters. Here we have a Gossamer Gear Mariposa 60. This I would call a pretty robust backpack for most of your long distance backpacking needs. I personally have used this backpack multiple times on thru hikes of my own. It comes complete with a aluminum stay built in here for a frame, foam padding. It has a full hip belt that's load bearing. You've got load lifters. You can even swap out the hip belt for when you're losing weight or gaining weight. And you also have a large tent pocket on the side and two other accessory pockets on the side here. You can also add various accessory pockets to the shoulder straps as well. It also has an accessory zippered pocket here for you to get stuff quickly while on the fly. I would say this is a pretty feature-rich pack when considering long-distance backpacking for packs today. Another pack for thru hiking or long distance backpacking that's in the 50 to 70 liter range is this Hyperlite Mountain Gear Southwest 55. A couple differences with this pack is this one is basically waterproof. It's made of a different pack material that does not allow water to get in, and it's seam taped. Also with this particular pack, the hip belt is not replaceable. So this is a one size fits all. Once you buy it, you're locked into the size for your hips. On top of that, you're missing some of these accessory pockets, but you can mitigate that with adding some of these other accessory pouches to the outside to help you. And with the hip belt, these hip belt pockets are also waterproof with these waterproof zippers along with it. So who would choose which one of these packs? Some things you might want to take into consideration are you worried about your hip belt being too small or too large at different points in your hike? Or are you worried about price point? Or are you worried about waterproofness? Do you like more features? Do you like less features? Do you want more durability? Do you want more pockets? Do you want things that you can tether to the outside? These are all things you want to consider with choosing these types of backpacks. We haven't even discussed the weight of any of these packs, but maybe you want a brighter pack. Maybe you want a darker pack. Maybe you like the aesthetic of one versus the other. I've gone through all types of packs in my day, and sometimes I like switching it up. Sometimes I like having a pack that is waterproof. Sometimes I like having a pack that has a frame. It kind of changes all the time, so kind of play with it a little bit yourself and decide what you want to use this time around. All right, next you've got your 70-liter backpacks right here. Boom, it doesn't even fit in the frame, it's so big. All right, these packs are for expedition or like long food and water carries where you're not getting resupplied in less than, 6 days or so. Packs like this are going to have some more features that you're not going to see in the other backpacks we've been showing that are lighter and smaller. For example, here you have a full frame, aluminum on the inside of this with a trampoline that helps distribute the air behind your back so you're not overheating when you're carrying such a heavy load up a mountain. Yeah, you've got load lifters here that are made with more durable materials. You've got a robust hip belt that has a whole bunch of webbing that you can tighten it down and make it fit for you more perfectly. These are typically super cushioned. And again, it's made with more robust materials because it's meant to take on a heavier load and get used out in more rugged areas. The only cases where you're going to use a backpack like this are, I don't know, if you're doing a lot of trail maintenance, if you're not getting resupply within under a week, or even if it's your first thru hike and you're just going for pure comfort. These are typically a starter pack for a lot of thru hikers, and I can attest that my very first thru hike in 2013 on the Appalachian Trail, I used a backpack just like this. You might even see people up in Alaska with packs like this. Might see people in Nepal doing hikes in packs like this. If you're just going out for the weekend and you're not carrying extra supplies for other people, your dogs, your kids, whatever, you don't need a pack like this. Keep in mind when you're choosing a pack like this that you might evolve your base weight over the years and you might need to leave room for choosing a different pack down the road. For example, like I just said, the first pack I used was a pack like this, and I have evolved over the years significantly, going down from 65 to 55 to 48 to 40 and below in some cases. So it's kind of a journey for everybody, no pun intended. And don't be afraid to try the packs when you're out there getting lighter and lower in all your gear. All right, section 3, fit and sizing of your backpack. When you're going to buy a backpack, you must know your torso length. To measure your torso length, you must measure from the iliac crest, which is the top of your hip bone, all the way to your C7 vertebrae at the base of your neck. There are a ton of resources online where you can see somebody else measuring torso length. And you're probably wondering, why is that important? Well, no two backpacks are sized exactly the same way, and all of these backpacks come in different sizes. So much like when you're choosing the right shoe for your foot, you want to choose the right backpack for your back. All right, on to hip belt sizing. You may not know this, but your hip belt's actually pretty important because it carries about 80% of the load. That's if you even have a hip belt or a load-bearing hip belt. Some hip belts are just webbing belts that help keep the pack to your back, whereas other hip belts, like I said, are carrying about 80% of the load. So the sizing of that hip belt is pretty important. I certainly recommend you go into a gear shop and try on these packs if you can. Buying them online can be trial and error, and you might have to be dealing with returning packs multiple times if it's the wrong size for you, or if it doesn't fit good or feel good on your body. And make sure you're always putting weight in your backpack while you're trying these on, because when they're empty and they're light, they fit and ride completely different. There's also gender-specific types of packs and unisex packs, all right? So certainly not a one-size-fits-all for most people, specifically when it comes to women. A woman's pack may have different types of shoulder straps, it's going to have different sizing, and it may even have a different kind of hip belt. But just because you are a woman doesn't mean you need to use a woman's pack. There are unisex packs out there, but that just means you need to try them on beforehand to make sure they work for you. So some packs even have adjustable torso length systems built into the packs themselves. So there is typically a range that you can change on the pack itself to fit different torso heights. Last thing I'll mention briefly is that you can go into some gear shops and get what's called a professional fit for your pack. Some people might find that worth it. I never had that done personally. I did a lot of trial and error. But for you, if you have the disposable income and you know that the place you're going might have a reputable person who can do a fitting for you, it could be worth it. All right, section 4, frame types. There's 4 different types. You've got frameless, you've got internal frame, external frame, and then you have suspended mesh backs. This here is a true frameless pack. It's literally like a grocery bag, more or less, with a couple of shoulder straps. There is nothing to it. There is nothing that gives it any shape whatsoever. That is a frameless pack. The types of people a frameless pack is for are pretty much ultralight backpackers or day hikers. All right, you got your pros. It's ultralight. It's super packable. It has not many failure points on it. The less features, the less failure points. But you do have your cons. It requires you to be well organized. It requires you to have expensive ultralight gear. It also forces you to be more thoughtful with how you pack this pack. Because if you don't pack the pack right, it's going to be less rigid and it won't carry the load as well as you would want it to. Also, another con would be comfort. You know, you're on long water carries, long food carries. If this is your thru hiking pack, your shoulders are going to take a beating. All right. So you need to make sure that you're accustomed to that so that you're not in so much pain while you're out there on your hike. If you're prone to different types of pains, whether it's back pain, hip pain, whatever it is, this pack probably isn't for you because it's gonna exacerbate some pre-existing conditions potentially. All right, let's move on to internal frame. Here we have my choice for through hiking, the Zerk 40. This backpack has an internal frame or frame sheet. So a pack like this is a pretty common type of pack for through hikers these days. And like I said, it's the one that I prefer to use. A frame sheet works exactly how it says. There is a sheet in here that's sewn into a pocket that keeps the pack having its size, shape, and keeping that while you're backpacking. It also provides a little bit of comfort here on your back, so you don't have to be as thoughtful when it comes to how you pack your pack. But you also have your internal frame stays. Okay, here we have a pack that has a frame stay. You can hear it. There's stuff in there. There's a metal rod that goes around the outside of this pack and typically links in to the hip belt. So it helps load transfer from here to the hips. One of the reasons people choose a pack with an internal frame stay is load transfer with load lifters. We'll get into that in a later section. The benefits of internal frame over frameless is it carries the load better. Now, it also means it's typically a little heavier because you have a metal frame inside your pack. Most backpackers are using packs that have internal frames these days. But there's also the old school external frame. We don't even have an external frame backpack at our disposal here, but it looks like something like this. External frame packs are certainly an older, more conventional style of pack, but they do have relevant use because they do carry heavy loads quite well by comparison. Sometimes they can be a good choice because they have better ventilation, modular uses. A lot of careers that are in the backcountry see people still utilizing these types of packs all the time. People like rangers, trail maintainers, etc. Those are harder to find these days, so let's just talk about the last kind, suspended mesh backs. Here we have a pack that actually doubles as a suspended mesh back with an external frame stay. As you can see, this suspended mesh back helps keep the load off of your back and gives you better ventilation. People that might want to use a pack like this are people that are hiking in more humid, hotter places, people that sweat a lot. These can be more comfortable to some types of people. One of the cons, however, is when you have that pack completely loaded out, the further the weight of the pack is from your actual back, the less stable the load is going to be. So make sure when you're packing this type of pack, you try your best to keep the majority of the heaviest parts of the weight as close to your back as possible. That way, it's not making you fall over, being off balance so easily. Our own Andrew Skurka did a lengthy video on how to pack your backpack. We'll leave that link in the description. Section 5, suspension systems and load transfer. Let's quickly touch on load transfer. Specifically, these load lifters right here. Straps at the top of the shoulder straps that connect to the top of the frame at the top of the pack that throughout the day, you'll want to tighten down to kind of adjust the load on your shoulders as you're hiking. So this transfers the load up to the top of your pack while hiking. The looser they are, the lower the weight's going to be on your back. The tighter they are, the higher up on your shoulders the weight is going to be. Another thing with load transfer has to do with your hip belt. As I stated earlier, about 80% of the load can or should be on your hips. So if your pack fits right and you're using your load lifters correctly, 80% of the load can be transferred down through the frame to your hip belt. That's why it's really important to have the correct size pack to know your torso length and make sure the hip belt fits. Because when it comes to load transfer, if none of those things are the right size for you, you're not going to be able to transfer the load correctly and the pack weight is going to ride all messy all over your back and hips. Now, it's worth noting that not all backpacks have these functions. Ultralight backpacks and fast packs typically don't have load lifters and oftentimes don't have load-bearing hip belts. Some frame sheet packs will have load lifters but won't have load-bearing hip belts. Packs with internal frame stays can have load lifters and can have load-bearing hip belts. Now, there are other factors that go into this too. Shoulder strap design, sternum strap, lumbar padding, hip belt padding, and back panel ventilation systems. So typically, the heavier the pack, the more you're going to want load lifters and load-bearing hip belts. But anywhere in between, you might want to find a blend of some of those things. Figure out what works for you and make sure you're trying these packs on. All right, let's move on. Section 6, the weight of the pack itself. You got to remember that your actual backpack weight is part of your base weight in and of itself. Pack weight can vary anywhere from sub 1 pound ultralight backpacks to those big burly 70+ liter expedition packs. Those can be 6+ pounds. There's always going to be a comfort versus weight trade-off at all the different types of packs you're going to be buying. All right, but the rule of thumb here is heavier the pack, the heavier the loads. The lighter the pack, the lighter the loads. We could have a whole video based on just pack weight in and of itself, but let's just keep this short and sweet. On to section 7. Materials and durability. All right, we can make an entire video again about this subject, but I'm not going to do that to you here. We're going to keep this short and sweet, and I'm going to keep it pretty dumbed down. All right, essentially you have 3 main categories of materials that you'll see in backpacks out there these days. You've got your nylon packs out there. You've got your Dyneema or DCF, which is Dyneema Cuban fiber, or you have your ultra blends. And then after you decide what kind of material you want your pack to be made out of, then you have how durable do you want your pack to be. And that's where denier comes into play. Denier just basically means how thick, how robust, how durable that material is going to be. Common deniers are 210, 420, and 630D. D denoting denier. And the higher that number is going to be, the thicker and more durable that denier will be. All right, let's start with nylon. That's typically going to be your cheapest, but sometimes your most durable. It's also probably going to be your most common. Now, what nylon can give you in durability, depending on the denier, it will also lack in ultralight properties and waterproofness. However, some nylons can have a coating that's DWR, durable water repellent, PU, polyurethane, or a silicone coating, and that can help aid in the water resistancy and durability. Some brands that sell nylon packs are like Osprey, Gregory, you'll even have Mountainsmith, Mountain Hardware, just to name a few. All right, next up, let's talk about Dyneema or DCF, which is Dyneema Cuban fiber. Here's an example of a DCF pack, Hyperlite Mountain Gear. Typically more expensive, but also highly waterproof. Typically, these packs are less durable than a nylon pack and less abrasive resistant, but they are lighter. A lot of backpackers choose this specifically because it's waterproof. However, these might take a beating, and at the end of a long thru hike, you might be retiring it. So here we have an example of an ultra blend material. This is a Durston Kakwa pack. One of the key differences between DCF and this ultra blend material is one is non-woven, the other is woven. And this is woven with a ripstop weave. Now this is typically more waterproof than a nylon, but it is not officially waterproof. The seams on the inside are not taped, and the outer parts of this material can still take on a little bit of water compared to DCF. Whereas the DCF pack I already showed you has sealed seams, and the material is waterproof. An ultra pack like this one will defend against punctures and abrasions far better than DCF though. The trade-off is sometimes this material is a little bit heavier. So when choosing a pack, how are you going to decide what type of pack material you want yours to be made out of? If budget is your biggest concern, you're probably going to want to go nylon. Waterproofness is your biggest concern, DCF. Abrasion resistance is your concern, then you might want to go with an ultra blend. All right, that's basically all I have for you on materials. Section 8, hydration. When it comes to hydration with backpacks, you basically got 3 options. You have a hose right here for an internal bladder. Some people like that. I personally don't. You have external pockets here for bottles. I typically carry 2 bottles on one side, sometimes another bottle on the other side. But some people like to carry their water on their front, or at least some of their water on their front, because they don't want to reach back, or they don't want to have a hose dangling, and they just want to have a bottle right here, right by their face, so they can drink at their discretion. It really all comes down to preference. Just make sure you understand how best you like to consume your water throughout your day. All right. Section 9, top brands to know. We talked about all the things about the packs themselves, features, functions, sizing, all of that. But what are some brands to know? Traditionally, you have Osprey, Gregory, Deuter, even REI Co-op. A lot of these are considered your beginner or entry-level packs that you can find almost anywhere. But just because those are some traditional packs doesn't mean that experienced backpackers aren't using those brands. Like I said, some of those are built for comfort for larger loads more than these other cottage brands. So don't rule those packs out. But here are some of those cottage brands I was talking about. You've got your Zpacks, your Hyperlite Mountain Gear, your 6 Moons Designs. You've got ULA, you've got Durston, you even got some Granite Gear packs. Then you've got some mid-range hybrid brands like Gossamer Gear and Mountainsmith. All these types of brands have their own unique functions and features, so make sure you do your homework and don't just buy the first pack you see. All right, section 10, how to buy your backpack. Now you're ready to go and buy your backpack, but where are you going to get it? A lot of people like just strolling down to their local REI and looking at all the different packs they have there. And that's fine. They can help measure your torso, they can load up a backpack for you, and you can try it out on some terrain that might be either inside or outside that REI store. While they might have weighted sacks in there for you to try on this pack, it might make sense to bring your sleeping bag and your shelter with you just to load that in as well. They also have a phenomenal return policy. While they have a phenomenal return policy, they don't always carry every single type of brand that you might want to be looking at. For example, they typically don't carry cottage industry brands. You're not going to see a Gossamer Gear, you're not going to see a Six Moons, you're not going to see a Mountainsmith inside the stores themselves, even though they might sell them online. However, you will be able to check out a Hyperlite Mountain Gear in there typically. Next, let's talk about buying online. As I said, it makes sense to try your pack on first, but you also might find a better deal online somewhere. So a little hack to maybe save some money is try the pack on in a store somewhere and then go look for deals. But if the backpack you want isn't in the store, you need to go online to the backpack you want to buy and check out that sizing chart. But also make sure you're not buying your backpack the day before you leave. You want to do several training hikes with your pack before you get out there on the trail for your long distance hike. You also may want to buy several packs and try them all out before making a selection. So just make sure you're adhering to the return policy properly so you can get your money back. All right, last, let's talk about used gear. Maybe you don't want to buy a brand new pack because it financially doesn't make sense for you, or you want to be a little more sustainable. You can find them on Gear Trade, you can find them on Facebook Marketplace, or even the REI garage sale. But always make sure you inspect the pack closely to make sure there's no failure points and nothing's already tearing at the seams. All right, I just threw a whole ton at you, so let's recap some of this. Trip type, volume, fit, frame, materials, and how to buy. While all those things can come into consideration and should, you also don't want to get too hung up on some of that stuff because this is supposed to be fun. So at some point, you got to make a decision and get out there and try it. All right, so what kinds of backpacks are y'all looking at? What's your favorite? What do you want to hear me talk about next? Let me know in the comments and we'll see if we can get to it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and get out there and have fun. My name's Jabba, the Real Hiking Viking. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Until next time.